parents were here illegally when I was born, but I went to school, I'm a nurse. I've done a lot for this country.
Tonight, reaction in the West after U.S. Supreme Court decision leaves the future of birthright citizenship hanging in the balance. President Trump calling the decision a monumental victory.
Well, this was a big one, wasn't it? This was a big decision. An amazing decision, one that we're very happy about.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to West Coast Wrap. I'm Frank Malicote on this Friday night. Today's Supreme Court decision stripping federal judges' authority to grant nationwide injunction. That will limit the judge's power to block President Trump's executive orders. On his second day in office this year, President Trump signed an executive order seeking to end birthright citizenship for children born in the U.S. to non-citizen parents and undocumented immigrants. The Supreme Court was asked to address whether federal judges could issue nationwide injunctions. Those injunctions have put some of the Trump administration's policies on hold. President Trump applauded today's 6-3 decision that federal judges lack the authority to grant nationwide injunctions.
Thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people.
The court's three more liberal judges dissented. Justice Sonia Sotomayor writing, the parents of children covered by the citizenship order would be well advised to file promptly class action suits and request temporary injunction relief. Fox 11's Christina Gonzalez got reaction to the decision in Los Angeles, a place that's become a flashpoint in the country's immigration debate.
My parents were here illegally when I was born, but I went to school, I'm a nurse. I've done a lot for this country.
I'm a firstborn, so I don't agree with that.
My parents were here illegally at one point, so that means that affects me too. I serve this country too, so.
President Trump's executive order is aimed at ending birthright citizenship for babies of undocumented immigrants or parents with temporary status in the U.S. And millions of people could be affected if it's applied retroactively, which is something many legal scholars doubt.
Look, we are a country of immigrants. My parents were both naturalized American citizens, and my mother didn't become a naturalized American citizen until I was in college.
He's a professor at Loyola Marymount. Indeed, plenty of successful, well-known people like U.S. Senator for California Alex Padilla are birthright citizens. American-born celebrities like actress Diane Guerrero and Olympic gold medalist wrestler Henry Cejudo have spoken about their undocumented parents. But most likely those are not Trump's targets, theorizes Loyola professor Stanley Goldman.
The fact that birthright citizenship is up for play does create some very interesting questions about if the administration, if they're able to deport people selectively based on their parents from years ago, whether they can just selectively pick their enemies and decide, well, there's an argument maybe they weren't legal, so let's just move on them.
The whole issue disturbing to many we spoke to at what is considered Los Angeles' birthplace, Placita Alvera.
They're natural citizens, so there shouldn't be a reason why those rights are taken away from them.
And that was Fox 11's Christina Gonzalez reporting out of L.A. And Loyola Marymount University law professor Jessica Levenson joins us now with some insight on today's Supreme Court decision. Great to have you with us, Professor. Good evening.
Good to be here.
So what is your reaction to the High Court's decision, and what doors will this open for the executive office down the road?
I think you're exactly right to phrase the question this way, which is this case really has nothing to do with birthright citizenship in the sense that it's all about the scope of relief that federal judges can provide to people who challenge executive orders. And so the question really was, when you walk into a federal court and you say there's a problem with this executive order, what can the judge do? Can the judge say, you're right, so the executive order can't be applied to you? Or can the judge say, you're right, and so the executive order can't be applied anywhere in the nation? What the court said today is that door number 2 is essentially closed, but with some, I think, important caveats. One is that there is still the possibility that individuals could band together and seek to be certified as a class. That would provide people with much broader relief. The other is that the majority said there are situations where states could bring nationwide injunctions, where states could bring challenges and ask for a nationwide injunction based on the theory that states couldn't otherwise get adequate relief. And then finally, if challenges are based on a federal statute, something called the Administrative Procedures Act, and federal judges agree that those challenges are likely to be successful, I think that would functionally look equivalent to granting a nationwide injunction. So this certainly takes one of the tools in the toolkit away from federal judges, but there are still some that remain.
So birthright citizenship is unaffected for now, but did today's Supreme Court ruling give the president perhaps an easier path towards eventually abolishing that?
I don't think so, in the sense that certainly there is now a non-zero possibility that some of that executive order that would seek to, in my view, undermine what the 14th Amendment says about birthright citizenship, there is some non-zero possibility that some of it goes into effect in certain places in the country. I think for a number of reasons it likely will not, but if this case is in fact challenged on the merits, on the constitutional question, if that goes up to the Supreme Court, then I think there are at least 8 of the justices, who would say that particular executive order is not constitutional.
So this was not just a President Trump issue. Isn't it true that a number of presidents have had the same issue with the lower courts blocking their executive orders?
Well, that is exactly right. So when it comes to anybody who's in the Oval Office issuing executive orders, and those executive orders are challenged, and a judge says, I don't like this executive order, I think it has legal problems, and I'm going to impose a nationwide injunction, the president who issued that executive order will be unhappy. So this happened in the Obama administration. It happened in the Biden administration. Now, I do think it's worth noting that President Trump just issues more executive orders by orders of magnitude than his predecessors, and there are more challenges to those executive orders. But this is really about the power of federal judges when it comes to policing the executive.
So, Professor, what happens to the cases in the lower courts now that caused the injunctions, and will they still be heard? And how do class action lawsuits, you touched on it a little bit, come into play now?
Well, I think to take the second part of the question first, I think there's going to be a lot more pressure to try and certify these class actions, because now that is the way for people to get broader relief when they're challenging executive orders. In terms of what happens in the birthright citizenship case, I think what will happen is the Trump administration will go back to the lower courts and say, you impose a nationwide injunction and you shouldn't do that. And they'll ask for a more narrow order. And then I think those challenging the executive order, and this has actually already happened in the last few hours, are seeking to be certified as a class. And I think that the states that brought suit will now say, I'm looking at that majority opinion, and we should get a nationwide injunction, which is a long way of saying the fight is not over. Both sides will go back to the lower court, fight out exactly what the relief will be. And of course, as we've mentioned, none of this has been a final ruling on the merits of the constitutionality of this executive order.
All right. Well, we'll have to hold it there. Lots to chat about, but Loyola Marymount University law professor, Professor Jessica Levenson, thank you for your time and your insight. We appreciate it on a Friday.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Other news now. Police officers in Southern California community of Huntington Park say they've arrested a man accused of impersonating a federal agent. They say the man approached officers as they investigated his vehicle, which had 2 LED light bars hidden under the sun visors. They also say they discovered police-like handheld radios and a gun inside. Investigators say the man told them he used to be a Customs and Border Protection worker, but could not provide any proof of that. Huntington Park Mayor Arturo Flores says the way federal agents have been carrying out arrests creates opportunities for crimes much like this.
When ICE and other federal agencies choose to operate in secret with no transparency they don't just enforce the law, they incite fear. We cannot allow bad actors, whether they are rogue individuals or unauthorized impersonators, to exploit this confusion, to intimidate and extort our community.
Huntington Park City Council has passed a resolution directing the city's police department to verify the identity of anyone claiming to be a federal immigration agent in that city. Meanwhile, California Governor Gavin Newsom is suing Fox News, alleging defamation about a phone call he had with President Donald Trump around the time the National Guard was sent to L.A. The lawsuit alleges Fox News' anchor Jesse Waters edited out key information from a clip of President Trump talking about calling Governor Newsom, then using the video to imply Newsom had lied about the two talking. The governor is asking for $787 million in punitive damages in his lawsuit. We'll note here, Fox News and several television stations that do contribute to this newscast are owned by that very same company. In a statement to the Associated Press, Fox News said, quote, Governor Newsom's transparent publicity stunt is frivolous and designed to chill free speech critical of him. We will defend this case vigorously and look forward to it being dismissed. Well, a popular swap meet in Las Vegas has closed just days after an immigration raid at another swap meet owned by the same company in California. Vendors at the Broadacres Market in Las Vegas were told to pack up and leave last week. All this happened less than a week after enforcement operation at the swap meet at Santa Fe Springs in LA County. Both are owned by Newport Diversified Incorporated. One vendor said that the closure felt sudden and surreal.
Ay, Diosito, pero...
Dear God, this can't be happening. I just bought new supplies for my business, my money. Now I'm not going to have any income.
Our sister station in Las Vegas reached out to the CEO of Newport Diversified Inc. to answer questions about what led up to the closure in North Las Vegas. So far, they have not received a response. Advocates gathered today in Seattle to highlight their effort in bringing Tuan Fan back home to Washington. Organizers say he's been held at a military base in East Africa since May, could soon be sent to South Sudan. Pham is a Vietnamese immigrant who had permanent legal status. He was detained by ICE after his release from prison after serving over 20 years for murder and assault. Tuan's wife is calling on the governor now to pardon her husband.
My husband's life is now more at risk than ever. At any second now, he can be deported to South Sudan or any country that the Trump administration sees fit and pretty much be disappeared.
The family says they believe that he would be deported to Vietnam after his release. Head over to West Coast Rep for extensive coverage of the country's immigration debate. Some of what you'll find online is a breakdown of what each Supreme Court justice has to say about today's decision in the birthright citizenship case. Well, they call it freight recession. Throw in the president's tariffs, and the trucking industry has been reeling. What lies ahead for this age-old industry? Coming up.
Sunny, 73 degrees over LAX today. Changes in store coming our way for the weekend. Coming up.
2, 1, fire.
And man's next trip to the moon will go through the great state of Utah. We're going to show you NASA's test of the rocket built in the West. Coming up. Welcome back. The Colorado funeral home owner who stored bodies in a decrepit building and sent grieving families fake ashes, now facing 20 years behind bars. Today, a judge handed down that sentence for this man, John Halford. The funeral home owner pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud last year. Prosecutors say Halford cheated customers and defrauded the federal government out of nearly $900,000 in COVID relief. Back in 2023, investigators found bodies of his customers that wanted them cremated stacked on top of one another in a building in Penrose, southwest of Colorado Springs. Halford will be sentenced in August in a separate state case involving 191 counts of corpse abuse. And the man accused of throwing a Molotov cocktail into a crowd of demonstrators in Boulder, Colorado says he's not guilty of hate crimes. Today, Mohammed Soliman pleaded not guilty to 12 federal hate crime counts tied to the June 1st attack. Soliman is accused of trying to kill 8 people who were part of a crowd all gathered to show their support of the Israeli hostages. He's being prosecuted in state court for attempted murder and other charges. President Trump's temporary pause on some tariffs could end early next month, and that has people in the shipping and trucking business very nervous across the West. Fox Suni Sai visited Southern California's Port of Long Beach to get a sense of the challenges people in the trucking industry are facing.
They weren't going to ship, let's just say, a quarter full vessel, which is extremely expensive to bring out here. So that just tells you that no one's buying.
The ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach are 2 of the country's busiest. But for the truckers tasked with getting goods to their final destinations, they say business has been down for quite a while.
It's a tough deal, especially for over the last 2.5 years, as the market's been declining and we've been in this freight recession, and then which has been exacerbated by these tariffs this year.
Robert Loya, the president of the California Trucking Association, says now, on top of other things, trade tensions are taking a toll on his industry.
Imagine if you were losing 80% of your income. It's pretty difficult for them to survive financially, right? So a lot of truck drivers actually started doing something else. And so they leave the industry because they just didn't know. It was unknown when these tariffs were actually going to get resolved, if the freight was going to come back.
And experts say truckers will continue to feel the pain over time.
Companies end up investing less in their workforce, which lowers productivity in the long run. And if you lower productivity in economic terms, that means that your wages are going to go down.
Matt Schrapp, the CEO of Harbor Trucking Association, says before truckers can bounce back, they need some clarity on trade policy going forward.
Without increased volumes, we will see more trucking companies going out of business. So we need that certainty to be able to plan and ideally invest back into our companies so we're able to be successful and, again, keep people employed.
And that was Fox's Suni Sai reporting. Schrapp added trucking companies are cautiously optimistic this current surge in business will last through the month of September. Well, the U.S. and China revealed some new information about the agreement reached between the 2 countries on trade. China's government confirmed today that some type of arrangement had been reached, but offered very few details. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said China has agreed to make it easier for American companies to acquire rare earth minerals from China, which are needed for manufacturing and semiconductor production. In exchange, the U.S. will lower tariffs on Chinese imports, though it's unclear by how much.
Part of the agreement was tariffs coming down and rare earth magnets starting to flow back to the U.S. They form the core of a lot of our industrial base.
We hope that the United States side will work with China to implement the important consensus reached.
President Trump has set a July 9th deadline for world leaders to make a deal, or he says tariffs will go up again significantly. Well, people in parts of the Southwest are bracing to feel temperatures soar over the weekend. This is a live look at Phoenix, one of the cities where an extreme heat warning will take effect on Sunday. Let's bring in KTVU meteorologist Rosemary Roscoe, who's tracking the warm-up and other conditions all across the West Coast. Rosemary?
Yes, Frank, unbearably hot for Phoenix this afternoon, coming in 107 degrees and expected to continue to heat up in the days ahead. Meanwhile, California along the coastline enjoying some nice weather. 70 degrees San Francisco this afternoon, low 70s reported in Los Angeles. How about the current conditions out there? As we get into the evening hours, temperatures will continue to cool, but areas like Phoenix, no such luck. Still 104 at this time. Meanwhile, closer to the coastline of California, San Francisco has dropped off by 10 degrees, 60 at this time. And in the Pacific Northwest, 64 in Seattle, and Seattle today, even a bit rainy. Let's talk more about this heat for areas of Arizona for tomorrow could last, or Sunday could last into Tuesday for some. Does include Phoenix as well as Tucson, where temperatures are going to continue to climb. So for Phoenix tomorrow, looking at 109 degrees in the afternoon. And with that dangerous heat, of course, you want to avoid the outdoors by even 11 o'clock, already 99. And then we'll be with triple digits all the way, it looks like, until about 7, 8 o'clock. So dangerously hot there for those folks, and no end in sight, at least not through the weekend. Meanwhile, Seattle, 69 today, mostly cloudy and rainy. Now, this system is actually moving out, so behind it, areas over the Pacific Northwest actually going to see temperatures warm up a bit and going to see more sunshine going into the weekend. Meanwhile, San Francisco today coming in at 70 degrees, and in Los Angeles, temperatures also in the 70s near the coastline there of Santa Monica. We had temperatures in the low 70s, and over areas of LAX in the low 80s for the afternoon. Here's a look at your forecast into the next few days. Starting in the Pacific Northwest, temperatures will be rebounding in a big way for Seattle, upper 70s by Sunday, low 80s on Monday. Meanwhile, San Francisco going to see just a minor cool down into the weekend there, stretching into Monday. Over Los Angeles, beautiful weather, partly to mostly sunny conditions and temperatures in the low 80s. Denver going to see thunderstorms actually move in come Monday as the cool down continues there for the weekend. But back to Phoenix, look at that, 109 for tomorrow, 114 on Sunday, 115 on Monday. Frank.
Alrighty, Rosemary, thank you for that. Coming up, enough power to rattle the ground beneath your feet. You're going to see how NASA tested a brand new rocket right here on the West Coast. Coming up. After more than a month, the trial of Sean Diddy Combs is coming to a close, with his defense team delivering their closing arguments today. They accuse prosecutors of creating a fake trial over exaggerating Diddy's recreational drug use and swinging lifestyle, calling it racketeering. Diddy's attorney also poked fun at a high-profile raid of his home, where agents seized hundreds of bottles of baby oil. Much of the trial centered around Combs' relationship with singer Cassie Ventura. We did speak with TMZ today about how Diddy's attorney implicated him of physical abuse.
Look, my client is guilty of domestic violence, of being a domestic abuser, but that is a state crime. That is not something he is charged with here today, and so you can't convict him of that. And he's saying that much he is guilty of.
After receiving detailed instructions, the jury will start deliberating on Monday.
2, 1, fire.
And boy, fire it did. This is a look at how NASA pulled off a test of the most powerful segmented solid rocket motor ever created in the state of Utah. Scientists tested the booster obsolescence and life extension yesterday in Promontory, north of Salt Lake City. The booster is designed to power the Space Launch System for Artemis missions to the moons. The booster performed perfectly for about 100 seconds before experiencing 2 explosions related to the nozzle. Despite the issue, though, NASA officials considered the test largely successful. 4 more tests are planned to refine that design. And we want to thank you for joining us tonight at West Coast Wrap. You can stay up to date on all the stories covering online. Go to westcoastwrap.com and stream all your shows on your smart TV by downloading the Fox Local app. Good night.